Sorry, everyone.
All right, this is the Rundown with Rob and Rich. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Rich Swerbinski with the Mortgage Collaborative, joined as I always am by Rob Krisman. Rob, good to see you. Well documented that you drink heavily during the show, but usually you leave the bar first. But
Rich, there's only so much to do in Alaska.
right.
And you're looking at a good chunk of it right there.
Drinking what, ice fish?
Yeah, drink and fish.
And Rob and I are pleased this week to be joined by a special guest co-host, the CEO of TMC preferred partner, longtime preferred partner, LBA Ware, Lori Brewer. LB, good to see you as always.
Hey, everyone. Great to be here.
And Lori, your company, I remember when we first started talking 4 or 5 years ago, you were established, but I think both our companies were starting to grow. We had some great conversations about your vision for technology in the mortgage industry and some of the unique products that you've brought to market that did not exist, that now have great traction. You've rolled out a new product in addition to your signature LO comp product called Linegear, which is a business intelligence product. And I think I read somewhere you've produced and analyzed, done the essentially work on like, what is it, $6 to $7 billion in LO comp payments over the course of the last year now?
Yep, over the last 12 months. Crazy, isn't it?
And you're putting together these great studies on LO compensation. I want to get into it a little bit more because this is a burgeoning topic right now in the industry, and nobody knows the topic better than you. We've had you speak on it at our conferences now for 4 or 5 years. But tell us a little bit about just your company and some of the unique things that you have going on right now.
Okay, thanks, Rich. And I want to share that years ago, when TMC was kind of early on, I think we weren't a super early adopter, but we were pretty early to come on board. And Rich snagged me with a simple email line that said, "Rock, chalk, Jayhawk." And I'm like, okay, I got to talk to this guy. And we've enjoyed being members and partners ever since. So LBA Ware, I'm Lori Brewer, CEO and founder of LBA Ware, and we are a software shop that only operates in mortgage lending, and we have 2 products. First one that we have been innovating on and growing and running is Comp'nSafe for the last 10 years. Comp'nSafe was born out of, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about, but born out of the financial crisis and the need to have a better view of LO compensation and automation of those compensation rules and visibility and transparency. It really has become a recruiting tool for lenders so that they can manage any type of compensation plans and have it automated so that there's accuracy in those calculations. Our second product that we launched in summer of 2020, what's going on in 2020? You know, we're all sitting at home anyway. Let's launch another software product. That is Linegear. Linegear is a business analytics and intelligence tool for mortgage. So it, in a nutshell, takes all the data that you have in-house and makes it visible and accessible across the organization. And it's turnkey. So you don't necessarily have to hire software developers. You can let us do the heavy lifting and get dashboards and KPIs and scorecards and see what's happening across your organization, not only from a loan pipeline perspective, but from a people perspective, which I think is going to be really important going into the end of this year and into next year. What are all of my people doing? What are the activities? What's the quality of their work? And that's what we're working on with Linegear.
Awesome. And yeah, really, I talked about it on this show 2 weeks ago, a pretty extensive survey of a bunch of key leaders from our 235 lender members across America. And one of the real central themes to the results of that survey was, now that the dust has cleared on the really robust volume of the last year, is lenders wanting to understand, how productive their employees are, to make smart staffing decisions going forward as technology continues to have more of an impact just on our industry in general and the loan manufacturing process. So certainly viable products, and it's going to be interesting next couple of years for the industry as tech continues to emerge and lenders really staffed up and using technology better in general than they have in the past. But let's get into it, Rob. Sticking with the same theme here, you linked a column in your email newsletter early this week. Excellent column written by industry attorney Brian Levy. It was about LO comp, and Brian essentially was kind of making the argument that is the LO comp rule still needed due to the fact that there are far less risky products that exist, that there is more fair lending oversight in the industry, and is the current LO comp rule actually hurting borrowers by maybe not promoting an environment where they could get the best rate truly because of the equality that is needed around products and rates offered to all borrowers. So I want to start with you by asking just LO comp in general. What are you hearing from your readers? This very important topic in the industry. How do you see things evolving and playing out throughout the course of the next year or so as it relates to LO comp?
Well, Rich, thank you again for having me, and Lori, welcome aboard. I have a quick question for Lori, though, before I forget it. I think many people in the industry, Lori, want to know, where did Linegear get its name?
So my background is engineering and development, and our logo used to be 3 gears that were different colors, and each one represented a product. The green gear originally was for construction lending administration, which we still have that product, but we decided might not have been the smartest move with today's environment, but we decided not to move forward with its growth. So we had a green gear, and that morphed into Linegear, which represents making money on your production line.
Very good. Well, thank you. Is it true that you put a little Linegear on your Chuck Thompson high tops for your team?
Yes, so we have quite a few lime themed.
There you go.
Thanks.
So Rich, in answer to your question, yeah, everybody likes knowing what everybody else is making, or certainly what your staff is making, and certainly they want to automate that. And Lori has really hit the sweet spot in the industry in terms of doing that and monitoring that, and being able to produce management reports, which are so important. The issue, though, that you raised, that Brian raised was, it's safe to come back into the water now, so let's all jump back in. And I like to say this industry has about an 8-year memory and a 10-year business cycle. So here we are. Oh yeah, subprime won't happen again. This won't happen again. Credit guidelines, we won't go down the credit curve again. None of that will happen again, right? Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's good to have safeguards in place. And I wanted to ask Lori, what are you seeing? I mean, are your clients, clearly they're monitoring it. Do they realize how important it is?
Definitely. I mean, it's important. I agree to a certain extent with Brian's comments, and I especially agree with the part that nothing's perfect, right? What law or what act is perfect? I think that the qualified mortgage and ECOA and all these other things are, like he said, LO comp is a little bit of a duplication of that, because at the end of the day, the best part I see of LO comp is fair lending. I mean, is it stopping loan originators from, Rob, you might not be sophisticated, so I'm going to try and sell you some other type of high risk loan, and Rich, I'm going to give a 30-year fix. Well, that's not even really a situation. I mean, all the product for the most part is 30-year fix, and of course that was what, as we've all discussed, that was the original intent, was to keep me from putting the less informed borrower, Rob, into some type of subprime loan, but that is not needed anymore. And that was the intent, I think, of his last musings, which I agree with. It's like it's regulation in search of a problem. However, there are good things that come out of it. From my perspective, we're a software vendor, and at the end of the day, there's still math that's going to have to go on to calculate how people are paid, unless we totally get rid of commissions. So to me, I think if we could restructure it and align it with the business goals of the business, that makes more sense, because it's a fight right now. You see it in when you're looking at how LO Comp is organized and written. I'm a business. My number one goal is to make money and pay my people and keep everybody headed toward the same goal, which is to keep us in business and profitable. And that's a lender's goal. They have to be profitable to stay in business, but they're paying their sales staff not on profit. It doesn't align. And that's the part that just, in my engineering mindset doesn't jive, right? And it would be nice to fix that. And if you guys remember, like in 2018, the NBA wrote a letter to, David Stevens wrote a letter to the CFPB, and it looked like they were going to kind of take, or at least look at some of the things. And it was pretty much three things, which was, if an LO makes a mistake, allow them to reduce their commission so that they can reduce the rate. I don't know that if I necessarily agree with that, just because that now is a wage and hour law thing. You probably couldn't do that in California. But the second one was allow them to lower the rate and commission for competition. And then the last one was, especially in this one, I truly see as a problem, and I think it needs to be fixed and addressed, is some of the down payment assistance loans and things like that, first time home buyer loans. There is not a lot of profit in it. And if you're a for-profit company, how much education and emphasis are you going to put on those products when you lose money on them because you have to pay your sales staff the same? And that's where that's the biggest disconnect, I think.
So I know that you're very good at providing management in your clients with the metrics, with the tools that they can use to monitor compensation, integrate with their other systems and so forth. Are you ever asked to provide advice on LO Comp, for example? When we're talking about LO Comp, do you ever have people come to you and say, we really need help aligning our compensation of our originators or our account executives with, the goals of the company, or we kind of want to know what everybody else is paying their LOs? So, I mean, what are you called in to do for your clients?
We get that question, and I then quickly refer them to the people in the industry that's their, there's people that concentrate on those types of things, and that is not us. So plenty of attorneys and the Stratmores of the world that I think do a really great job at assessing. You could, because you have to really study the entire business to come up with a new strategy for that, in my opinion.
Right. But what about when I talk about aligning the goals of an originator or an account executive with that of the company? Is that an ongoing discussion that you have with clients, or do you see clients out there trying to do that?
Yes. And we see several more and more, and we introduced some features in our software to allow people to attach payments to metrics, because we don't just do the commission of the LO. We do all the overrides, bonuses, your operational staff, And there has been a huge movement to, or maybe it's always been there, it's just now people are looking to automate it and roll it out across the company more. But quality, quantity, you know, these 3 fields in the LOS, add them together, divide them by 7.2. If it's a Tuesday, they get an extra stip and pay their bonus that way. You know, weighted averages and weighted units for underwriters, that's a big one. And it makes sense. And it's kind of cool to do those things because they do make sense. If an underwriter is working on a self-employed loan or a tough FHA purchase, it's a lot different than a streamline refi, and it should be compensated differently. So yeah, those are fun things that we get to help our clients with.
Do you notice the trends change over time in terms of compensation? You know, we had so much wrong, arguably, with what was going on in 2008, 2009, 2007. Steering was going on, different programs or different compensation programs based on different programs, and you know, subprime versus prime, et cetera. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Obviously, a lot of that has calmed down, but in the last 4, 5, 6 years, do you see compensation trends that are evolving or changing in terms of, you know, what your clients are paying and how they're paying it? Are things, you know, for lack of a better term, and maybe you don't want to weigh in on this, but do you think things are continuing to get better in terms of compensation for originators?
Better is a loose term. I
True.
think that the industry has kind of come to a level. There's a lot of, you know, snowflakes out there, but there's a lot of consistency too. So, and just, you know, kind of jumping in on some of the things we found in our study that we just put out, the BIPs that are being paid across like per LO has stayed pretty steady. The big difference, of course, in the last few quarters is that LOs are doing significantly more business. And what I see and what I think is possibly the LO was able to ebb and flow with more business because I feel like there's been some technology purchases that have helped the LO take on more business themselves. So looking at my numbers here, that they in our data, we saw that from Q2 of 2020 to 2021, so comparing the 2 quarters of second quarter, for every 3 LOs, they had to just hire 1 additional. So for every 3, they went up to 4. But for processors, for every 5 processors, they had to hire 3 more. So it was about a 60% increase in processors, but only a 33% increase in LOs. And you guys have been around. Every time, it's just like, why do we have to keep staffing up and staffing down and staffing up and staffing down? Like, why can't technology take more of the brunt of that work? Why can't a processor, an LOA, and an underwriter, well, an underwriter, that's a whole other discussion, but because that's still a lot that they have to take on. But the LO was able to take on 100%. And both of those numbers, the statistics, processor and LOs did 100% more business quarter over quarter per person on average. So the LO was able to take that on, but processors as a group were not. They had to staff up significantly more. So in my opinion, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of technology that we could put out to make the company more efficient.
You raise a very good point, as did Rich, because second half of 2020 and well into the first quarter of 2021, probably arguably into the second quarter of 2021, the the lenders out there, the originators were pedaling so fast that they didn't have time, arguably, to the resources to dedicate towards some of the things that they do now, whether that is new technology. And I know a lot of companies rolled out some great technology in the second, third, fourth quarters of 2020, but I think there were still things that got pushed back or pushed out. Now, with volumes declining somewhat, when you look at the NBA application stats, we've been down a couple of weeks in a row. And so it's giving a lot of lenders and vendors to some extent a chance to catch their breath. And are you seeing an increase in interest in your product now that that is going on? Are your sales calls now being returned? Is management saying, we didn't really have time to implement this last year, Lori, but let's have a demo? Are you seeing that out there?
Yeah, we see a pretty steady influx of demo requests, and I do think maybe a few people are starting to come up for air. But well, I have a question for you, Rob and Rich. Have you guys heard the term the great reshuffling or the great resignation that's coming? Have you heard those terms yet?
I'm borderline illiterate, so I don't hear those things. What is it? What is it? Maybe Rich has.
Rich, I don't even know if Rich is there. He's kind of.
I think that's just like I say, that's a witness protection outline. In fact, if Rich turned around, there'd be like a target, like in a shooting range, that the bad guy pointing a gun like 20 yards away. But so the great reshuffling, what is that?
So the reshuffling, I was reading about the great resignation, and I came across the great reshuffling, which I think was first coined by a Zillow study, which was talking about so many people are moving in the last 12 months. I think they said 1 out of 10 have moved, and there's still a significant percentage that are looking at moving, which of course will be good for our industry. The great resignation is, and I don't know if you guys feel it yet, but I don't know, I physically feel it in my office and just talking with other business owners. It's kind of this energy of everybody's been sitting tight and now they're coming up for air and they're thinking about what's important. And it goes into the whole discussion that everybody's been having around work from home or remote or return, and if my company's going to require me to return to the office, then I may want to look elsewhere, which was why I kind of went down this rabbit hole. But it's interesting because I think a lot of people are looking to change jobs. And then, so I'm looking at all this, and then one of the MBA's chart of the week came out, and it showed that LOs, their churn is at one of the lowest levels it's been in just years, which I thought was interesting. And I think well, why do you think that is? I have my theory on that.
Well, and by the way, I mean, the great resignation, I feel resigned quite often. And when I do, I just get up and I amble over there and my cares go away. But seriously, the kind of the pedaling as fast as they can, a lot of originators had full pipelines. A lot of originators didn't want to leave those loans. A lot of originators, I think, I'm not convinced that originators and account executives like flipping jobs every year or 2 or 3. The good originators that I know, for the most part, there's some exceptions, but for the most part, the good originators or the good salespeople or the good, commentary writers or whatever, they tend to like to stay put. When you're an originator and you get to know the underwriting guidelines and you get to know the underwriters and you get to know the processors and you get to know the management and you like that sense of permanency because you're firing on all cylinders, and then you get a call from the recruiter or another company, and unless something has changed at your present location, I would say that the good originators, they know the systems. They're open to hearing what's going on out there, but they're not anxious to make a jump. Now, if something has happened with regards to the management of their existing company, or maybe their favorite underwriter just left, or their process, or whatever might have happened, might be a change, then they're going to be more open to that. but because we were doing so much volume, I'd say that the top originators just preferred to stay put and continue rowing the boat and making some really good money. I mean, there are a lot of originators, and the figures better than I do, but a lot of originators I know made more than $1 million last year, which is really great. So if you get to August or September, October, and you're thinking I might hit $1 million, the last thing you really want to do is like go, kiss off your pipeline and go somewhere else and have to learn a whole new system all over again. I don't know, Rich, what are you hearing or seeing out there?
Well, I think there's definitely something to the points that Lori brought up, just regards to how people have changed their perspective on a lot of different things, being happy in their profession and the value of their home. And there's certain things I think that will be long-lasting effects from the pandemic. I think for our industry, the companies that don't have incredible culture, which is much harder to maintain and permeate when you do have people working from home, and will really struggle. And we just did a recent wave of collaboration labs where we kind of get groups of like members together for these really intense discussions. Everybody's under NDA, so it's these fascinating discussions about their business owners talking about their businesses in a safe haven environment. And there were some things that were really interesting to me. One was the divide between work from home and not work from home. Some lenders adamant we are getting people back into the office, and others that absolutely not. We will let people do what they want. So companies are all over the board on that. And I think you're going to see, you have employees that want one or the other. Another thing I kept hearing was concern from business owners over their ops employees that made gobs of money, so that processor that maybe made $55,000 a year, that made $95,000 a year last year, now is unhappy that, they're back to a $55,000, $60,000 clip, and how that could impact some things as well. And then lastly, as it relates to LOs moving around, the divide that we saw between banks are never going to go out and pay huge signing bonuses typically in credit unions, but our IMB members, the divide on paying LO bonuses. There were some IMB members of ours that clearly felt and are in the process of executing a strategy. The whole, how are you going to spend the profits of 2020 to make your company great in 2021 and beyond? Very important decision for business owners. A lot that felt paying big bonuses to elite top LOs with some kind of clawback to give them safety was the very smart strategy. Others that were adamant, we're never going to pay anybody more than $10,000, $15,000 bonus tops to come on board. But I do think you're going to see some IMB business owners who made truckloads of money last year that are going to start spreading that wealth around. They're already in the process of doing it. I think you could see a lot of LO movement this year because the climate is expected to be very stable. Rates are expected to be low for a long time. The refi is what it is right now. In my opinion, it's a great time to make a move if you're an LO. With Rob's point noted that a lot of great LOs do like to stay in one place. There's obvious benefit to that. I think you can see a lot of LO movement over the course of the next 12 months.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Rich, because here we are, and you mentioned it. Rates. This big increase in rates, the experts were thinking was going to happen. We're almost halfway through the year, and they haven't done much, frankly. I mean, you can still get 30-year fixed rate loan at 2 3/4 or 3% or whatever it is. Rates are good. Rates are stable. And so we could be here for a while, and it really allows people to focus on what they do and to in terms of terms of LBA Ware and Linegear, it allows management to really focus on managing and to use the tools available to them to really refine their organizations and streamline things and make things more efficient. I raised, I do have a couple paragraphs in tomorrow's commentary, Rich, about there's a lawsuit going on right now in Houston against a hospital because of vaccine issues, which are interesting. But that aside, we could have a whole breakout session on strategies of bringing people back or not bringing people back. But right now, the managers are out there saying, all right, we can sell our products at about the same level that a lot of other lenders are selling their products for. So the race is gonna go to the most efficient lender, the lowest cost lender. And Lori's products, not to toot Lori's horn here, because you did a good job of that already, but frankly, your products help managers do that. So why wouldn't a manager want to check that out? Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, simply, in my own business, I try to figure out ways to have visibility. But if you decide everybody in place it, we're a remote workforce somehow, right? I mean, you're never going to know exactly what people are doing from one day to the next, and there has to be a lot of trust involved. But a little bit of trust and verify, and especially when it's been so great over the last year, but it's not going to be that way forever. And in my opinion, to run an efficient business, you have to know to a certain degree who's contributing and who's not. And I have the same struggle in my own business. And if everybody's working from home, and I honestly don't really know what they're doing, and you have to then be able to tie activities to the outcome and then stack rank people. So one of the coolest things, I'll just brag for a minute on Linegear, one of the coolest things we put in there, and a lot of the things in Linegear, we didn't just sit around with a beer and think of. It came over the last 20 years from accumulating how our clients and my friends, frankly, are running their businesses, and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and how can technology help. And one of the things we put in Linegear, which I think is extremely cool, is you may have President's Club or Circle of Excellence, and all of that's great and wonderful. But if you're only tying that to the volume, for example, that an LO does, or you're not doing the same sort of thing for operations, wouldn't it be cool to have a weighted score, not just rank of volume or units, but a score that you control and say, you know what, I'm going to say 30% of my score is the customer satisfaction rating or NPS, and another 30% is number of conditions or speed from application or pull through or any of these things, and then the remaining piece is volume. And now I put those together, and now I stack rank people, and that becomes a really efficient and very powerful tool to at least get an initial look at the hundreds of people that we've added to our organizations. Well, not me, but that the lenders have added over the last 12 months, especially, so they can see who's really rock star and who might need some coaching.
This is the Rundown with Rob and Rich. Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative, joined as always by Rob Krisman. This week, special guest host, CEO of LBA Ware, Lori Brewer. We got about 10 minutes left. And one of the things that I was really pleased and in some cases surprised by are the innovative things that lenders are doing, have been doing already to create really unique culture within their organization, with a lot of people still working from home, and just things that they're doing. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out, because you have some lenders that, maybe you're in a state or a market and it's like, listen, everybody comes in the office because this is what we do. And then you have lenders that are spread out more. You have operation staff and loan originators that no longer need to be living in the same state where a potential employer is housed. And it's going to be really fascinating to me to see how this all plays out. I am seeing, though, a big divide in how lenders handle these things. The one consistent theme, though, is last year, everything was sunshine and bunny rabbits because everybody was making so much money, and you rewind the last summer, oh my God, work from home is so much more productive. Well, nobody had anything to do, and they were elated to have a job, and they were getting bonused on additional volume. And fast forward to today, and I think what Lori said is very true. One consistent on all mortgage decision makers is they are concerned about the productivity of their at-home employees. They're all saying the same thing, that the less busy it is, the less productive people are. Obviously, less loans in general are going through the pipeline, but the productivity, overall volume aside, of work from home employees drops significantly when it's not really busy. Like when it's just kind of busy, that they are no longer convinced that work from home productivity is better, and many feel like it is worse than in the office productivity, which again is a huge divide from what we were talking about last summer and last fall, when everybody was convinced, oh, you don't got to drive to work, and you don't got the commute, and you don't got this, you don't got that, and why weren't we doing this all in the past? So Rob, I'll pass it back to you. Your thoughts on the whole work from home thing and where it ends up going in our industry.
Well, it's important to remember, Rich, that a good percentage of originators, whether they're retail or wholesale, were already working from home before the pandemic hit. So to them, it's working as usual. I think where things will change will be in the ops and mid-level management. I know a lot of senior managers, or I should say a fair portion, never went home. They continued to work, at least part-time, in the office. So kind of comes down to, occupations. Lori, what are you seeing out there? Are you seeing the big shift back into the office?
It's for lenders. I'm not really, anecdotally, I think people are coming back, but I'm not really sure. For us personally, I am in my office. I'm one of those that never left, just because I prefer it. But we're going to continue with a hybrid approach, because I have interviewed some people lately, and the reason that they're taking that I am interviewing them is because their company is requiring them to come back in a few months. I don't want to lose anyone for that that reason. But it's an interesting, because I definitely think, I'm old school. I definitely think being in a room with a whiteboard is the only way you're going to kind of have ideas percolate in a certain way. You can't, it's too hard to do that on this 2D Zoom.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to be in here 40 hours a week. I think that part can be reworked for sure.
We just did labs. It was like 120 lenders in like 10 or 11 different collab labs. It was about exactly 50-50. Yeah, again, you had some lenders that wanted to go back to 100% in the office, some that 100% remote. And this is, again, not talking about LOs and underwriters, but all the rest of the loan manufacturing staff and managers. And then, some that wanted a hybrid. You'd ball it all up, and it was about a 50-50 mix of work from home versus at home, but a couple of people have posted items in the chat along this line. There are certain people that will demand work from home now. There's no question about that. I mean, there is if I had to estimate it, a segment, I don't know if it's 15, 20, 25% of people that now, as somebody put in the chat, don't want to put the genie back in the bottle. Our team at TMC, we've always worked from home since the beginning. For some reason, we never used Zoom before the pandemic. I still don't know how that one got past me, but for me personally, I can never say never. I would do what I had to do, but it works good for me. I love it. I'm personally more productive, and it would be very hard for me to go back to a situation where I was in the office every single day. And it's just gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. Lori, I remember us talking when we first got to know each other 4 or 5 years ago. We were just starting to see trends on lenders that were compensating operational employees on production. You remember, it was not that long ago where that was considered taboo because of regulatory concerns about, oh, you can't pay an underwriter or a processor on production. They're just gonna, fly loans through the pipeline. And lenders, the CFPB changed and lenders figured out how to do it, adding a quality component. But many lenders last year that were like it was one of the things we heard all the time was if you worked on the weekend, you got an extra kicker for any files that you moved or decisioned, like on Saturdays and Sundays. And that was a real needle mover for lenders last year, trying to fight through these huge pipelines, because it was a way to get additional work done at a time when it's least likely to be done.
Hopefully at time and a half.
Yeah, it was, they were like per file bonuses. There was some really creative things that lenders were doing. Like if you were a processor, underwriter, or closer, and you wanted to work from home, and like what they would pay 2-3 times sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays. And people pointed to that as a huge winning strategy to help them fight through big pipelines last year when it was busiest. So,
which I think is great because, yeah, people were working a lot of hours. You guys know that.
With ops staff, another thing we kept hearing is there's certain people that are just like, they're riding out the string. Maybe they got convinced to come back to work. They had retired recently, people that the workforce, the operational workforce will change. And that's why lenders, I think, want to understand how productive their people are. They know technology is going to, let's face it, eliminate operational jobs as we move forward. So if you're going to have to eliminate jobs, and it's hard, and you have more people working from home, so it's harder to keep your tabs on things. Very important to understand who is productive, really productive, using data and analytics. So,
and
Susie, run down.
Not to end on a bad note, but a lot of firms are looking at cutbacks, and it'll be so important to be able to monitor and measure and assign metrics to the decisions that are made, because you may not know, a manager may not have met a portion of their staff that they've hired in the last year, and now it's time to cut things back. So you don't have that oh, well, I really like Joe, and Samantha makes good brownies for the potluck. I mean, you don't have that. It comes down to metrics. Who's performing and who's not. So,
and the banks and the credit unions, they don't want to get rid of anybody. Some have just organizational cultures where we don't lay people off. Their mindset's very different. A lot of our IMB members are like, I can't wait to start getting rid of people, because I know the first 8 that will go, either because, yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that all plays out. So we're almost up on time, but we can't end on layoffs and technology replacing humans. So LB, anything exciting going on this weekend?
Yeah, I am headed hiking next week in Colorado. Going.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, but my friends that I'm going, it's a group of women, and we go hiking We went to Bend last time and never saw a bear. We were prepared for a bear. Last night they went out ahead of me. I'm coming out this weekend. First night there, they had a bear outside their condo.
And we're getting comments in the chat. You got it. Your son was 62-0 in tennis. What the hell is going on there?
Yeah, my youngest son just graduated high school. He never lost a match. He didn't lose a set until the very last game of state, last match of state. And so the Atlanta Constitution Journal just voted on high school athletes of the year, and he was the tennis athlete of the year. So that was pretty cool.
So
Very cool.
he's got to be going. Where's he going? He's got to be going to college to play tennis, right? Smart mom, 62-0. He's got to be going to college, right?
Yep. He's gonna play at Georgia College. Yep.
Nice. Rob, drinking and ice fishing. What the hell are you doing in Alaska? Is there a mortgage conference there?
Here just for the halibut, Rich. I had to get that in there somewhere, right?
So
We don't script any material prior to the show.
Little Myrtle likes sauteed halibut cheeks, so she sent me up here to take care of that.
I really did think that was a virtual background until that guy showed up and he's walking around back there.
Until the bar started opening. Yeah, no, it's a Dove Island Lodge in Sitka, Alaska.
Nice. I've never been to Alaska, but it looks great by the background. As long as you don't go outside, right? It's probably nice there now, though. What's the temperature in Alaska?
It's not great, Rich.
Okay. All right. So excellent. Any other parting thoughts for the audience before we depart for the weekend? Lori, Rob, anything?
No.
Safe weekend.
Enjoy the weekend.
Awesome. Lori, appreciate you. Thank you so much.
That was fun. Thanks for letting me come on.
Thank you so much for
Hope to see you guys asking in person.
To show up a little bit, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you in person at the latest at our conference at Terranea, just outside LA, coming up in September. So
the photos of that place look amazing.
Yeah.
And I just found out that you guys are going to have a kayaking event, so I'm signed up.
Oh, we are having a kayaking event.
That's what I was told.
Right. So yes. Yeah.
Preferably early in the day.
No, we're doing it at 10 p.m. after happy hour. We're gonna make it a competitive event.
Well, it has to be a competitive event, no matter what time.
Excellent. And for our attendees, thank you as always for joining us on the rundown. We're here every other Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Take care.